Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I am your host, Eric Smith. And today I'm talking about The Legacy of Molly Southbourne by Tade Thompson. And this is from Tor. It looks like. That says Tor.com. There you go. For what it's worth. This is the third book in a trilogy, the Molly Southbourne trilogy. The first one is The Murders of Molly Southbourne, and I'm trying to look. I cannot read from this far away. I do not. Well, let's see if it'll tell me in the front. What is the other one called? The Survival of Molly Southbourne. So, I believe I've reviewed both books. Loved the first one. Gave it 5 out of 5, if I'm not mistaken. Rated the second one a little bit less, and I did not know that it was going to be a trilogy, and I sort of dinged the second one because there were too many unanswered questions. It just felt too open-ended for a book that I didn't know was going to have a follow-up. Maybe I should have known that. I don't know. But now we have The Legacy of Molly Southbourne, and as the third book in a trilogy, it's going to be difficult for me to talk about this because I don't want to give anything away. But what we've learned in the first book, our character, Molly Southbourne, I'm going to say that name a lot, apparently. She was raised with some crazy rules because, as she finds out, anytime she bleeds, her blood makes a copy of herself that is murderous and comes after her and tries to kill her. And so she didn't realize, as she was being raised, that her parents were, never bleed. If you do bleed, whatever you've bled on, wherever it's, bleach it, burn it, destroy it. She was raised with survival skills, martial arts, fighting skills. Did not know why until one day a copy of herself showed up and tried to kill her. So that's the setup. So in the first book, we're dealing with all of that. We're learning it, she's telling us, or we're being told this, that this is how she grew up. This is what she's dealing with. So we're going through her life. Then in the second one, which starts immediately from the events of the first one, it sort of expands her world. And I can't really talk about it because, again, don't want to give anything away. So now this one starts, I believe, it's been a little while. I kind of should have read the first two again, reread them before I jumped into this, but I was so excited to read this. This takes place, I believe, sometime after the second book. So whereas the second book took place immediately, like the first scene in the second book may have even been the final scene in the first book, a little overlap. This one now, I believe there's a time gap between the second book and the third book. And we sort of have a cold open where some guy gets a flat tire in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the night and he's murdered. And then we get this woman who's going out for movie night or going to a friend's house for movie night. And before she can get there, she's brought out of retirement. This has the elements of a thriller, like a Robert Ludlum kind of thing, where it feels like, The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. This, I think, I may have read that, but that's what I think of when we have someone who seems like maybe they're not who we think they are, because this mysterious government agent comes and says, "We need you," and they're like, "I'm out of that life." They're like, "But you need to do this one last thing. It's such and such," and they're like, "I'm in." So, does any of that make sense? So this woman, I'm not going to tell you who it is. So this woman now has to hunt down, is trying to find out who, why, how, whatever, hunt down the killer of this man. And there have been some other murders as well. While that's going on, oh man, there's I don't want to spoil the other two books because you really need to read this whole trilogy. Um, there's stuff going on with Molly Southbourne. There is stuff going on with this other character that we met in the second book. And so you have this woman who's hunting down the killer. You have Molly Southbourne. And if I had a third hand, you would have this other character from the second book. Let's see if I can find. I want to say it's like Tamara. I do not see it on the back. I'll take a quick scan. Quick. Yep, Tamara. Okay. So, woman, Molly, Tamara. Basically 3 storylines that are all converging. And it is fantastic. Tade Thompson has a nice, clean, fast-paced writing style. There are some things that won't necessarily make a lot of sense if you haven't read the first 2 books, but I don't think, like, if for whatever crazy reason you just decided to read this and skip the first 2, I think you're still going to get an interesting thriller. But you're going to be missing some things. Yeah, I don't want to tell you anything else. Great writing, great characters. Feels like a thriller with a sci-fi horror element to it. Caps off the story nicely. I wish I'd known when I read and reviewed the second book that it was a planned trilogy. It may have changed my view of that book a little bit. But who knows? I'm definitely going to reread all 3 books, just like at some point. And they're short, they're quick. I read this in a day, but it's also that compelling. So yeah, sometime I'm going to sit down and just blow through all 3. Get the whole package at once. Highly recommended. All 3 books, highly recommended. But finally out. Got it the day it was released. That's how excited I was for this. Legacy of Molly Southbourne. Tade Thompson. 5 stars. Absolutely 5 stars. All right. So, pick them up. Pick up all 3. Read them. I wonder if they'll come out in like a single volume. I don't know. My question for you, this video. Have you ever just read part of a trilogy? Now I can see we're not going to say, we're going to leave out like you read the first book and didn't like it, so you didn't finish it. So I guess we'll say, did you ever just read like the second book in a trilogy or the third book in a trilogy? It's a weird question, but people do crazy things. So let me know if you've ever done that. Just picked up a random book and started in the middle. I've done that with series. Some series, authors I didn't know of, didn't necessarily know it was part of a series, picked up the book. But when it's a clear trilogy, like, what are the chances you're like, man, that last book sounds fantastic. I'm just going to pick that one up and read it. And then I'll know everything I need to know. I'll get the end of the story. Yeah, let me know. If I know something's a trilogy, I would never do that. People have crazy reading habits, though. I don't know if I've mentioned this before. I used to have a friend who said, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this, who said she would, when she started a new book, she would read the ending in case she died before she could finish the book. At least she'd die knowing how it ended. And I hear people talk about, and I'm not judging, but I hear people talk about how they skim over this passage or they skim over this because, it's a conversation. That's not important. I'll just skim over that. Let's get to the action. So yeah, people do interesting things when they're reading. So maybe people pick up part of a trilogy and just read it. So let me know if that's something you would do. I don't know. That's the only question I could come up with. Anyway, that's it. One more time. The Legacy of Molly Southbourne, Tade Thompson. 5 out of 5. All right. So if you have any comments, let me know your answer to my question in the comments below. And if you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put them in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post spoiler warning. We try to be polite here at the Low Budget Review Show. Please like, share, and subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. And if you'd care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is at Ronan5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, and fuzzy animals, is Eric Smith5757. That's Eric with a K. ERIKSMITH 5757. That's it. This has been the Low Budget Review Show. I have been Eric Smith. And until next time, read more books.